A lot has been happening recently in the life of Gautam Adani, and there has been a slew of news stories that have come out about allegedly some shady things they have been up to. Allegedly. Everything I say is alleged. I'm a small YouTube channel and I don't want to get defamation notices. Anyway, what I thought was that since there are so many things that have happened since January, ever since the Hindenburg report came out, I thought I should just take you through them one by one. All of them are extremely complicated stories, so I will try to simplify them as much as possible. And I will also leave a link to all the stories below. The idea here is to create a repository of what has happened since January, since those big Hindenburg reveals till now, till the point where the Financial Times has come out with a story about over-invoicing of coal, and two fabulous reports from the Reporters Collective, investigative reports done by Shri Girish Jalihal. I also got a chance to speak to Shri Girish, and you will see parts of that as well in this video. So let's go, let's begin the Adani saga with the first story, which comes from January. Starting with the big Hindenburg report published on January 24, 2023, it says Adani Group, how the world's third richest man is pulling the largest con in corporate history. As you can see, these are just the highlights, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on all the way till here. It's long. It's a very long report. This is what started the whole Adani saga, as I call it, and I'm going to quickly take you through it. Okay, so Hindenburg Research is a forensic analysis firm which doubles up as a short seller. Essentially, they see man-made disasters and then they bet on their failure. And one of these man-made disasters that they identified was the Adani Group. Allegedly man-made disaster. Yeah. Here's what the report broadly says, okay? First thing, Adani Group is over-leveraged. What it means is that it is overvalued and the share prices don't really reflect the company's performance. There are 7 listed entities which this report has named. These companies have seen a ridiculous 819% growth in the last 3 years. 819% growth. And the allegation here is that this has happened because the Adani Enterprises has indulged in massive stock manipulation and committed accounting fraud by doing something called round tripping. And the cake of the allegation is that the Adani family kind of controls the entire group of companies through a shady network of shell companies that are registered abroad. And they have named Vinod and Rajesh Adani, who are brothers of Gautam Adani, as people who are responsible for this, shady things that they have done in the past and are allegedly running a racket. So here's what the story says mota mota. According to the Indian law, only 75% of the stock can be held by the promoters. 25% of it has to be held by the public, and that is called a float, the 25%. That is done to prevent stock market manipulation, meaning this 25% kind of acts as a counterbalance to prevent people from, gaming the stock market. If, let's say, more than 75% of the stock is owned by the promoter group, what they can do is they can just hold the stock. And then according to demand and supply rules, because they're holding the stock and not selling it, the price just goes up. And that is essentially what this report alleges happened to the Adani Group. What they say Adani has allegedly done is they have unofficially owned a big chunk of this 25% float as well through foreign shell companies that are registered in the UAE, Mauritius, Cayman Island, all beachy, wonderful places, but also tax havens. On top of it, the Life Insurance Corporation of India and the State Bank of India have also pumped in a bunch of money into Adani, and that makes it ultra problematic because that is public money. So after this story came out, Gautam Adani, who used to be the 3rd richest man, suddenly became the 8th richest man in a day, and the stock value started falling like crazy. Adani also gave a response to Hindenburg with a 400-page document, out of which 30 pages were actually responding to this giant list of allegations done by Hindenburg. The rest of it was just attachments, I guess. There was a video also issued from the Adani group which said that all these foreign publications are just jealous of their success and jealous of the success of India. So they're just attacking India because apparently Adani is India or India is Adani, whatever you want to call it. They just said this is an attack on India. You see, ever since this Hindenburg report actually came out, and because our regulators have kind of failed in preventing something like this happening, the Adani group has always maintained that they have done everything by law. They have not done any of this and there is no proof, and they have been vindicated by court multiple times. But there was immense pressure put on them and there was bawal in the parliament, and the opposition leaders asked for a independent committee to essentially investigate what they are doing. But the government didn't want to. In the parliament, they asked for a joint parliamentary committee so that MPs can look into this, but the government didn't want to. After this Hindenburg report came out, the Adani group wanted to do a follow-on public offering. And something really amazing happened during that time. This is the story. Forbes published this report on February 1st, 2023. It reads, there is evidence that the Adani group likely bought into its own 2.5 billion share sale. So last year, before the Hindenburg thing actually happened, the Adani group had announced that they want to raise more money from the market. So they did something called a follow-on public offering, meaning offering more shares to the public. There was also a theory that they wanted to sort of increase that float that I just told you so that it goes into like legal territory. But before they could actually do that, the Hindenburg thing happened. Stock markets crashed, wiped out a bunch of their stock market value. So when the follow-on public offering actually happened, it was basically a disaster. Only 3% subscription happened after the market opened, which is bad. But then in the last minute before the whole FPO ended, there was like this surge of money coming into the FPO and suddenly it was 100% subscribed. Some high net worth individuals and foreign entities just randomly threw money into the stock market to subscribe to the FPO. Now what this report points out is that there were two companies which they found, Elara Capital and Monarch, who actually put in money into this FPO. Right? The last minute surge allegedly was because these two companies put in money. Here's the funny thing. These two companies were actually named in the Hindenburg report as well. So in a way, what we ended up seeing during the FPO was Adani actually doing allegedly the same thing that they have been accused of, which is pumping money from foreign shell companies into their shares. But this time we saw it happen live. And this Elara and Monarch, once they pumped in money and it got subscribed, everybody was like, oh yeah, of course Adani managed to do this, pull this off, etc. But then, strangely enough, Gautam Adani did a video telling everyone that it cares about its investors and it is completely withdrawing the FPO, looking at the market volatility. So it was 100% subscribed, but because the value was so low, apparently Adani was forced to withdraw the FPO completely. That was the story that was published on Forbes. Kind of blew my mind a little bit. It also shows how confident the Adani group is about this whole thing and how protected they are in general. It just seems like that, right? I mean, if they can do a thing like this live while the entire world is watching them, especially after this big report comes out, there would be extensive scrutiny on them, at least from investigative journalists, even if not from our regulators. And in that scenario, they got these two shell companies to still pump in more money into their FPO. I mean, this the most bizarre thing. So at this point of time, after the FBO has been withdrawn, $120 billion of net worth has been wiped out from the Adani group, and that's a very big number. But the troubles did not end there, because there is another story that hit them. This one is again from Forbes. It reads, "Is Vinod Adani the mastermind behind his brother's empire?" This was published in March 30th, 2023. It says, "Gautam Adani's secretive older brother Vinod is worth nearly 10 billion, a fortune that Forbes recently uncovered while investigating a maze of shell companies." So this is an uber complicated story, so I'm going to try and simplify it in the best way possible. So the allegation is Vinod Adani owned Arcopolis, this company called Arcopolis, which in turn owned an investment fund called Worldwide Emerging Market. They bought Adani shares, the high value Adani shares, which saw like a giant spike, remember? And those were used as collateral to get loans from Russia's VTB bank. They just offered these shares as collaterals and took loans. And then they lent that money further to some unnamed related parties. Arcopolis and other companies are all Mauritius-based shell companies which are owned by Vinod Adani. They also point out there are three companies, Afro-Asia Trade and Worldwide Emerging Market and Trendline, who hold $4 billion worth of promoter stock in Adani Enterprises, Adani Transmission, Adani Ports and Adani Power. And they do not hold any other securities other than this. Bottom line is that there was a loan that was taken from a bank which was completely based on these overpriced Adani company shares. That was kind of shady. Allegedly. Adani Group has also pledged Adani Green shares to SBI Cap, a unit of the State Bank of India, to get a loan which in turn funded its Carmichael project in Australia. And Norwegian pension fund, KLP, had put in some money into Adani Green, and when they saw this transaction, they were like, yeah, we are not going to support this because you're funding a coal mine in Australia. So they divested all of their shares. And of course, Adani Green's value fell from 1900 rupees to 500 in a month. That's a 73% drop in value. So what happened to those collaterals which were used to take loans to buy a mine in Australia? Who knows? Because who is investigating this, guys? Who is investigating this? I don't know. Everything is alleged. Allegedly. You would think that their troubles are over, the whole thing is gone, and like our media forgets things, on a weekly basis, like short-term memory loss, that everybody would have forgotten this. But no. Foreign press, goddamn foreign press, which is anti-India, they did another story. And this time it comes from the Financial Times. It says, "Secret paper trail reveals hidden Adani investors." This report primarily named Nasir Ali Shaban Ali from UAE and Chang Chung Ling from Taiwan, who are associates of Vinod Adani. And they have apparently invested money into the Adani shares and bought a bunch of that free float I was talking about earlier. This is a chart which shows that because there was an Ali and Chang stake in this whole thing which was buying up the free float. Allegedly, that whole thing was connected to Vinod Adani. How? Flowchart, friends. Vinod Adani, Adani Group. There is an Electrogen Dubai which is giving money to Electrogen Mauritius, which is then giving money, giving a loan to Ascent Mauritius, which is giving to Asia Funds, Asia Vision Fund, which is also based in Mauritius, and that is putting money into Indian stocks. Oh, but wait, there is Chang Chung Ling, Nasir Ali Shaban Ali. Chang Chung Ling owns Lingo Investments, which is putting money into ESM Resurgent Fund and Emerging India Focus Funds, which is putting money into Adani. And of course, both of these, Gulf Asia Trade Investment and Mid-East Ocean Trade Investment, are also putting money into Emerging India Focus Funds, which is going into Adani stocks. The connection is that Excel Dubai, which is connected to Ascent, which is connected to Vinod, which is also giving money to Asia Fund, had also been advising both of these fellows to invest in Adani. This story also shows how Adani's spectacular spectacular growth happened. As I was talking to you earlier, 816% rise. You can see it here. And this little drop is because of the Hindenburg report. Not a little drop, it's a giant drop. So is it over now? No, it's not, because this is where the Reporters Collective comes in. In October, which is this month, about a week ago, Sri Girish Jalihal has done 2 reports which are on the Reporters Collective. They have done a fabulous job of essentially uncovering what I think seems like a coal scam 2.0, allegedly. Allegedly. All of this is alleged. No coal scam. I also got a chance to talk to Sri Girish about his report, and I asked him a bunch of questions about this. While I take you through this report, I will also play bits of the interview that I did with him. This is the first one. Advantage Adani, power industry lobbies, coal ministry unlocks dense forest for mining. Coal ministry overrode environmental ministry and its mining experts to do away with a ban on mining in dense forest of the country. So, the report says that in October 2021, if you remember vaguely, there was a scare that went out that we are running out of coal. That we have 4 days of coal left in our thermal power plants and there will be power cuts everywhere. Turns out that was just a scare. Even the ministry clarified later that no, we have enough coal. We're chill. But when that scare happened, there was an organization called Association of Power Producers, which is an advocacy firm. We don't do lobbying in India, we do advocacy.
I started firing these RTIs to figure out, कि हुआ क्या है. And तब हमें पता चला Association of Power Producers, which is this power sector companies का lobby group. It has 27 companies as members, including Adani Group, JSW. There's, all kinds of big names, right? Vedanta. Now, this coal shortage thing was absolutely bogus, right? Which is something that the coal ministry itself clarified in parliament. Actual news, the thermal power plants in India were left with only 4 days of stock left. So this was the problem that Bloomberg and others reported. This was purely a logistical problem. तब बहुत ज़्यादा बारिश हो रहा था. Post pandemic sudden power surge हो गया था. There was a supply issue. It was an issue of coal production. But इसको बहुत सारे लोग ऐसे spin करने लगे कि देश में कोयले का shortage आ गया, which is incorrect.
So that advocacy firm wrote a letter to the coal ministry and said, look, we have to become Atmanirbhar, okay? Here's the letter. We appreciate the government of India's policy initiatives for increase in coal production to achieve self-sufficiency under Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan and through various reforms in coal sector like opening of commercial coal mining sector for private players. Then they said, however, recently we have experienced a severe shortage of coal leading to less than 4 days of coal stocks in the most power plants. The ministry again has clarified later that this was a supply chain issue, that it was raining, it was post-pandemic, some stuff was going down, but once it was fixed, we were all good, right? But this Association of Power Producers is using this to advocate. What are they advocating for? This, the Mara to Mahan coal block. They wanted a coal block to be released and allowed for auction, which is in Singrauli, Madhya Pradesh, and it has coal reserves of more than 950 million tons. But the problem is, it is a forest area. It is a dense forest area. Even they know this. More than 90% of the block land is in forest area. So the Environment Ministry did not allow mining in these areas and 15 other blocks. What this Association of Power Producers said is that please, can you please let us. And there is an entire background behind why they do this, okay?
The government saw that there is very little enthusiasm for coal auctions. The companies are turning up. More than half of the blocks that they're placing for auctions are going unsold. And this is despite making tall claims, right? They said we'll generate 3 lakh crore revenue out of these auctions. I think at one point, one of the ministers, or it was the prime minister, I can't recall who it was, but someone in the cabinet basically said that jitna loss coal scam se hua hai, utne se zyada hum recover kar lenge. Obviously did not happen, right? And people were warning कि ऐसा नहीं होगा. You're exaggerating your claims.
This is the timeline, okay? June 2021, Adani Group emerges as a successful bidder for SR's Mahan Power Project. Now, Mahan Power Project is in the vicinity of this coal block we were talking about. The Association of Power Producers lobbies in November 2021 to open up the Mara Mahan block. In December 2021, the Coal Ministry asked the CMPDI, which is one of their export organizations, to review whether this block and 15 other blocks should be allowed to be auctioned for coal mining. In March 2022, Adani acquires the Mahan Power Project. In April 2022, CMPDI, that export organization, they said, no, please don't mine dense forest area, don't do this. But then Coal Ministry says, you say no, but we say yes. So in August 2022, they were like, let it go. Let's auction these. The Coal Ministry announces the 7th tranche of commercial coal auctions. Mara to Mahan is among the list of blocks on offer. And then June 2023, Mahan Energen Limited, which is an Adani subsidiary that owns the Mahan power plant, is the sole bidder for Mara to Mahan.
And this is all happening because of lobbying. They actually cite that we are doing this because of Association of Power Producers. This is not us joining the dots, creating this conspiracy. It's actually there in the files. Guys, you visit our website. We have placed all the files there. They very cunningly omit the critical opinion of CMPDI. So CMPDI has said this cannot be opened up for mining. उस एक चीज को omit कर देते हैं अपने letters में to the Environment Ministry, and they say, we have spoken to our institute and we think these 5 blocks are okay, we can go ahead with them. And the Environment Ministry is like, yeah, whatever.
Which brings us to part 2 of this story. Coal reform overturned. After failed auctions, Centre hands out coal blocks at discretion. When auctions fail, the Centre decides if lone bidders should get the coal mines anyway. 12 private companies have benefited so far, including the Adani Group. Now, there is some context here. Do you remember the coal scam which happened in the UPA time? The allegations were that the UPA government had allocated coal blocks willy-nilly to people without really following a transparent process of bidding. And then the Supreme Court just came in and cancelled the whole thing. Then Modi government came in and said, no, now we will bring in transparency into the whole auctioning process. And they have been trying to do that for a while. The thing is though, the coal auctions that they have been doing has not seen much demand. So there were not many bidders coming in to buy these coal blocks. What they did was they started this empowered committee of secretaries, which had the secretary from Economic Affairs, Legal Affairs, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and Ministry of Coal. And they gave them the power to do this in case of a single bid after successive rounds of auction for a coal mine, appropriate decision regarding allocation of mine.
I started looking at this when I was almost done writing part 1. And I saw that Adani is the sole bidder for the block. So the next question was, what happens in these cases? And I looked at these records, and these are all publicly available records. I found that they had quietly changed the auction rules to make this happen, right? Like sole bidder cases, we can allot the coal blocks on our own. And 12 blocks have so far been allocated in this fashion. And if you look at किस दाम पे गए हैं, these are very low prices. So Adani itself has won such a coal block through this route last year in Madhya Pradesh at 5%. So just for 5% is the amount of money that they will share with the government. And just for comparison, 4% is the minimum amount that you can get. Yeah, so we are talking about really, really low revenue shares.
Yeah. Auctioning works in a very simple way, right? So let's say a coal block is put up for an auction, then a bunch of companies will bid on it based on their capacity and whatever, and they will name a price of how much they will charge and how much revenue share they will have from it also, and how much the government will get. Based on that, the lowest bid is picked because taxpayer money. The lowest bid is picked, the company gets awarded the coal block. What happens when there is a single bidder? Well, ideally the auction should be cancelled. But in this case, they changed the rule and they said that even if there is a single bidder, we will just accept it. And out of all these companies, MP Natural Resources Private Limited is an Adani subsidiary. They backed the block without any competition after promising just 5% revenue share. For comparison, in the first tranche of commercial auctions, the minimum revenue share for any bidder was fixed at 4%. So they got a good deal out of this basically. But in all of this, there was one question which was very important, which this story also deals with. Clearly, if there are single bidders coming in, if there is no interest in getting coal blocks, which means that there is not much demand for coal. So why is the government allocating these coal blocks anyway?
There are very few companies in the country that actually have the kind of financial heft, political connections like Adani to be able to carry out mining, which is a very resource intensive sector. So that's point number one. Point number two, which is the largest point that we are trying to make with this series, is that there's a huge demand supply issue over here. The government has allocated blocks in excess of our demand, right? This is not something that we are saying based on our own analysis. This is something that has been said by Coal India, which is a government owned company, right? And they released this document. It's called Coal Vision 2030.
There is a Coal Vision document published by the government-owned Coal India in 2018, which noted that the blocks allocated by the government till 2017 were sufficient to meet India's electricity needs by 2030. What this means is that our coal blocks currently allocated are able to produce 2200 million tons of coal by 2030. And how much do we need? We need about 1200 million tons. So they have allocated a crazy amount of coal blocks even if there is no demand for it. Thank you for that, Girish, and thank you for both of these stories. And thank you, Reporters Collective, for the amazing job that you do. Guys, Reporters Collective is completely dependent on donations. So please do consider supporting them. Sri Girish took a while to do these stories. From March he started and now this story is out. So you can imagine how much he had to go through the documents and how many dots he had to join to get us these two very valuable reports. Again, I'm leaving the link to these two reports below. I'm also leaving a link so that you can donate to the Reporters Collective and then they continue doing this amazing work. At this point, you must be feeling a little sad for Adani ji. You know, we were like, कितना सहना पड़ रहा है Adani ji को, कितना attack कर रहे हैं, right? All these journalists, all these people who hate Adani and India's progress are just constantly attacking him, you see? Yeah. But are we done? No, we aren't done. We aren't done yet, because there is one more story that came out and this is very interesting actually. Financial Times again. This report was published on October 12th, very recently, 2 days before recording this. It says the mystery of the Adani coal imports that quietly doubled in value. Analysis of customs records shows Indian conglomerate has been inflating fuel costs using offshore middlemen. The story says that FT examined 30 shipments of coal from Indonesia to India by an Adani company over 32 months between 2019 and 2021. In all cases, prices in import records were far higher than those in corresponding export declarations. During the journeys, the value of the combined shipments unaccountably increased by over $70 million. Wait, how much is that in rupees? That's about, how much is this? 583 crore rupees. Anyway, coal shipments, yeah, they started from Indonesia, came to India, to Mundra port, and then that coal was taken to thermal power plants. Guess what? The shipping is done by Adani, Mundra port is owned by Adani, and then the power plant is also owned by Adani. So fun times. Entire thing, very Adani, very nationalist Adani. They have given charts like this one, DI Akakia. DI Akakia sailed from Indonesia to India with coal. The Indonesian export records show a price declared $25.88 per ton, which then when it reached India, it became $57.5 per ton. Many more examples like this one. Started at $32.6 per ton, though Ashna it's called. And it ended up with $75.1 per ton by the time it reached India. So the story says, according to the Indonesian declarations, these 30 representative sailings totaling 3.1 million tons cost 139 million. Plus 3.1 million in shipping insurance. The values declared to customs officers in India came to $215 million, suggesting that they made a profit of $73 million. A company run from a residential address in Taipei was declared supplier for 12.9 million tons of coal in 428 shipments from Australia and Indonesia. Remember, Australia may also they own a mine. Adani paid about 2 billion for the coal. The company is owned by Chang Chung Ling, a Taiwanese businessman previously identified by FT as a potentially controversial owner of Adani stock. Yes, we go back to that whole story, the pehle wala story which I told you, two businessmen connected, Chang Chung Ling and Ali and all the things comes back. Guys, there is a photo of him this time. See? Chang Chung Ling, owner of Hai Lingos in Taiwan. The company has declared supplier of 12.9 million tons of coal from Australia and Indonesia. This is Chang Chung Ling. Yeah. What a sweet guy.
A lot of these coal mines haven't operationalized, which means that they are not being mined currently. No coal is being drawn from them. So they're just lying around, which means that there is a shortfall, there is a gap, and we need to fill up that gap by importing. That's point number one. Point number two is that quality of coal also matters. A lot of coal in India is very high on ash content. It cannot be used for a lot of things, especially for steel industry, which uses coking coal, etc. So they need to import.
Anyway, that was the whole bunch of stories which I thought you should know. There is another reason why I wanted you to know these stories. There is a court hearing coming up. Court has asked the Securities Exchange Board of India, or SEBI, to submit a report about this whole allegation and what is happening in the Adani group. The hearing keeps getting postponed and postponed since August. We are in October now because the SEBI is like, oh, please give us some more time. We need to complete the investigation. I can imagine why. Look at this. Look at how much they have to investigate. Poor things. If they would have done it earlier, if they would have kept a track of this earlier, itna kaam nahi karna padta na. It's okay. Take your time. Take your time. Speaking of SEBI, must talk about this story. Hindenberg report, petitioners cite SEBI members' family ties with Gautam Adani. SEBI has an apparent conflict of interest in investigating the Adani group since an employee, Cyril Shroff's daughter, is married to Karan Adani. But the petitioners are saying, ki boss, we wanted independent investigation and look at this. Cyril Shroff's daughter is married to Karan Adani and Cyril Shroff is also related to SEBI. How will this be independent anymore? Cyril Shroff is the managing partner of Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, a law firm. He is also the member of SEBI's Committee on Corporate Governance, which also deals with offences such as insider trading. The petitioners also argued that SEBI concealed the January 2014 alert by Directorate of Revenue Intelligence about Adani having siphoned off money and invested in Adani listed companies through entities based in Dubai and Mauritius. Right, so that was the video, guys. This was the update on the Adani Saga. If there are more updates, I will add to the Adani Saga. Let's start an Adani Saga just to keep a record of all of this. Before the court case, please do share this video with a bunch of people who want to know what is happening with this whole Adani thing. This was a very simplified version of what I just told you. These are very complicated stories which I have been reading and tracking for months. I tried to simplify it as much as I could. Maybe I didn't cover all the details. So what I'll do is I'm going to leave links for all the stories in the description below. So please feel free to read. And also, if you think I should have mentioned something which I missed out on, please leave it in the comments below. And yes, thank you Reporters Collective again, and thank you Shri Girish for coming and telling us more about these stories. Keep watching this channel. Bye bye bye.